Welcome to English 102. This is a fast-forward online course. This means that we'll be covering approximately 16 weeks of coursework in 8 weeks. Because this is an online class, we will be accounting for what would normally be about 5 hours and 20 minutes of class time each week, in addition to the amount of time that you would normally spend on assignments outside of class. As a result, it's going to take a great deal of self-discipline and will require excellent time management skills on your part, and we will begin working on readings and assignments immediately. I'm going to begin by giving you a brief tour of our D2L online course page. In this section here is the News tool. I will use this tool pretty frequently to communicate any updates or announcements or reminders that I have for you, especially since I won't be meeting with you in person. If you read the welcome message, it tells you exactly what you need to do to prepare for this first week and to complete the assignments that are due by Sunday. Over here on the right side of the page is the calendar tool. It will show you any upcoming events or assignments that are happening. It shows you that week 1 will open on October 19th at 12 a.m. So that way you'll be able to access all of those assignments. And it also shows you that you have an attendance verification quiz coming up that's due on the 20th, which is the second day of our class. I will be talking more about the attendance verification in just a few minutes. Up here on the right side is Tools. If you click on Tools, you'll be able to see attendance and grades. These are the most important tools for you to use. I will document attendance using this tool, and I will also update grades weekly, so be sure to check in to keep an eye on your attendance and on your grades. Under assignments, you will see a list of different types of assignments. We will be using discussions, Dropbox, and quizzes. You can also access your assignments when you go under content and you access the weekly content as it's organized. If you click on content, it will take you to this section. You can see over here on the left-hand side that there's a toolbar. Underneath Overview, there's a document that goes over all of the important information that you need to know for the course, and I will be going over that in detail today. Under Course Information, there's a course calendar. This takes you through weeks 1 through 4, and the calendar will be updated to account for the rest of the semester. And then there's also the instructional package. As you can see, week 1 is available. So you can go under week 1 and you can access the different documents and assignments that you need to see. At the top of each week, I will post the weekly agenda. And underneath that, I will post any material or links to assignments that need to be completed. So here you have the instructor information sheet, the instructional package, the attendance verification quiz. It tells you when it starts and when it ends. You also have the course introduction video, which is what we're doing right now, the narrative evaluation essay, assignment, and guidelines, literary elements handout, Andrew Stanton's TED Talk, The Clues to a Great Story. There will also be a discussion assignment and a quiz assignment during this first week. Once again, if you go under Overview, you will be able to access the instructor information sheet. This sheet outlines all of the information you need to know about course policies and the different types of assignments that you'll be completing for this course. I'm not going to read over every detail in this document. You will need to do that independently, but I am going to go over some of the important information that you need to know to get started. First of all, at the top of the page is my instructor contact information. My office phone number is 843-349-7893, and my email address is lindsay.knowles@hgtc.edu. Email is the best way to contact me. During the week, if you can please give me 24 hours to get back to you. Oftentimes it does not take me 24 hours to return your email, but it can take me up to 24 hours, but many times I will check that email account several times per day. On the weekends, I have a 48-hour response time. So again, I often get back to you sooner than that, but it may take me up to 48 hours to respond if you email me on the weekend. When you do email me, please email me from your Student WaveNet email account. Please do not email me from a personal email account. Even though this is an online class, I do have office hours. I will be available to meet with you during office hours if there's anything that I can help you with. I'd be happy to meet with you about any assignments or concerns that you have, or even to go over your essays before they're due. This semester, I'll be available on Mondays and Wednesdays from 10 o'clock to 1 o'clock, and on Tuesday from 10 o'clock to 12 o'clock. I'm also on campus on Thursdays and Fridays, but you will need to schedule an appointment to meet with me on those specific days. This goes over the course description, so please read that independently. Success in the course is important. Success in this class is pretty straightforward. Do the reading, do the writing, participate, and ask questions. You have chosen to take this class, so make it count. This is an online course, so it is important that you understand the standards and expectations of an online course and that you have the computer knowledge and equipment necessary to complete and submit all assignments by the given deadlines. Online courses do require self-motivation, excellent time management, superior technological skills, and more. There is a document here that's posted by HGTC, so if you click on that link, you can go and look at more information regarding online courses. The required materials for this course are listed here. You do need the textbook, Literature, Reading, Reacting, Writing, the 8th edition. The editors are Kersner and Mandel. You will need some kind of storage device, Dropbox.com account or Google Drive. Dropbox.com and Google Drive are both cloud storage programs, and I highly recommend them because you can't lose them, and as long as you have a computer and internet access, you can access any of your files, and both of those are free. You do need to have access to your own work textbook and all assigned readings each week. You will need to have regular access to a computer, word processing program, the internet, D2L, and WaveNet. And finally, you will need a Turnitin.com account. This is free to you, and I will distribute registration instructions via D2L. In this section, it outlines the different grade percentages. So we will have short writings and participation, which are worth 20% of your final grade. Quizzes are worth 10%. There are 2 exams, Exam 1 and Exam 2. Each one of those exams is worth 10%. And then you have 3 essays. Essay 1 is worth 15%. Essay 2 is a research essay, so that is worth 20%. And Essay 3 is worth 15%. Underneath assignments and grades, the most important thing you need to note is that late work is not accepted. Issues with your computer, printer, or any other form of technology will not excuse late work. I don't release or discuss grades via email in detail because that often requires an in-depth discussion. So what we need to do is schedule a conference. I'm happy to speak with you about your grades at any point, but we will need to schedule either a phone conference or meet in person during my office hours. Grades are posted weekly in the gradebook on D2L, so make sure that you check the gradebook and keep up to date on your grades. We do have access to a couple different great resources here at HGTC. As online students, it may be difficult or even impossible for you to get to a campus, but we have BrainFuse, which is an online tutoring support service. There's a writing center component where you can upload your writing assignments and get feedback, and BrainFuse can take up to 24 hours to get that feedback to you. There's also a live tutor, so if you're ever working on an assignment and you have a question that you need to get answered immediately, you can access that live online support. We also have our Student Success and Tutoring Center, and we have a location on each one of our campuses. Each Student Success and Tutoring Center location includes a writing center with writing coaches who can help you with your writing assignments. So if you find yourself struggling, please don't hesitate to ask me for help or to use BrainFuse or to schedule an appointment at one of the Student Success and Tutoring Center locations. This section goes over the different types of assignments. We will have the short writing assignments. Participation will mostly be assessed through discussions. There's information about discussion posts, and this is important that you read over the details about each one of these assignments. Major essays and exams. And then finally, quizzes. Just a few things to note. Number 1, major essays are submitted on Turnitin.com. Turnitin.com I use for 2 different reasons. The first reason is that it is a plagiarism detection system. So if you submit a paper and anything in your paper is matching to an outside source, Turnitin.com will detect that. For Turnitin.com, when you submit a paper, you will get something called an originality report. That originality report will show you if any of your material in your paper is matching to an outside source. If it's a research paper, as long as you have quotation marks around the matching sections and in-text citations, then you're okay. If you get the originality report and you note that some sections are matching, but you've forgotten to put quotation marks or forgotten to document your source, you can have the opportunity to go back and fix it, and then you can submit your paper on Turnitin.com as many times as you need to until the deadline. Once the deadline hits, you will no longer be able to submit or resubmit any papers on Turnitin.com. The second reason that I use Turnitin.com is that I can grade your essays using this program. I upload a rubric and I can do text comments on Turnitin.com. And so whenever I announce that the grades are available for major essays, you will log back onto Turnitin and then you can access your feedback. You'll see text bubble comments, and if you hover over those in the document, you can see the comments that I've typed for you. You can also look at the score that you got on each category of the rubric for that particular writing assignment. And then I will also type any general feedback I have in the general comments section. You will have an assignment coming up that requires you to create a Turnitin.com account and set up a document in MLA format before your first paper is due. That way I can make sure that number one, you know how to set up a document in MLA format, and number two, you have a Turnitin.com account and know how to submit assignments before that first paper is due. For exams, the most important thing to note is that you do have to take an exam in a testing center. You are required to go to one of HGTC's testing centers on campus to take each exam. We have a testing center location on each one of our campuses, Grand Strand, Conway, and Georgetown, but please note that the hours do vary according to the location, so make sure that you check the hours for the testing center that you'd like to take your exam at, and you also need to schedule your appointment in advance. Exam 1 and Exam 2 are the required exams, and so you'll need to make sure that you set up that appointment and that you can get in on time before those exams close and are no longer available to you. There's information here about how to contact the testing centers and how to set up your appointment, so please make sure you read through that information. Here is the section on attendance verification. We're required to verify that students have attended courses during the first week of class. Because we don't meet in person, the way that we verify attendance for online courses is through a quiz. What you need to do is take and pass that attendance verification quiz on D2L by the specified date and time. This is noted on the course calendar, and your attendance verification quiz is due by Thursday, October 20th at 11:59 p.m. If you do not take that quiz and get 100% by Thursday, October 20th at 11:59 p.m., you will be withdrawn from the course. So please make sure you access that, you take that quiz, and if you have any issues accessing it, you contact me as soon as possible. All of the answers for that quiz are in this document. It verifies that you have read over the course information, that you understand the guidelines, and that you agree to those guidelines. You can take that quiz as many times as you need to until you get 100%. So if you don't get 100% the first time, that's okay. Just retake it until you get that 100%. For weekly attendance, after the first week attendance verification quiz, attendance is tracked by the weekly work that you complete on D2L. Attendance is also recorded on D2L, so please make sure you check that record regularly. According to HGTC policy, there are no excused absences. For an online course, if you miss 2 consecutive weeks of work, you may be withdrawn from the course. If you complete the weekly assignments, you will be marked present. Please note that emailing me or just logging into the system into D2L does not satisfy the attendance requirement. You must complete the work in order to be counted present for attendance. That said, if you have an extenuating circumstance that prevents you from completing the coursework, for example, if you're hospitalized or facing an equally serious situation, please contact me as soon as possible to let me know so that we can discuss how to proceed. In this section of the document is the Student Code of Conduct and Departmental Policies. Online etiquette is important for an online course. For online communication, we will follow HGTC's netiquette rules. and you can read about them here. There's this link, so please click on that link and read HGTC's netiquette rules. Conduct is also important, so please make sure that when you are conducting work online, particularly when it comes to interacting with each other in discussions, you are being respectful. The main form of academic misconduct in an English class is plagiarism. So any kind of cheating, collusion, or plagiarism can be followed by a number of consequences. I say this every semester, but I still have a student every semester commit plagiarism. So please make sure that any work you turn in to be graded is completed by you. It's not completed by anybody else, and you're not taking work and not giving the original source credit. If an instructor finds that a student has cheated or committed plagiarism, there are several different procedures that can be followed. The professor can assign a grade of 0 to the test, assignment, etc. involved in the academic misconduct. The instructor can assign a failing grade for the course with consultation on student academic options, including the appeal process. And the instructor can require the student to withdraw from the course. If something like this happens, the instructor will meet with the student, and then within 5 working days of the meeting with the student, the professor will provide a written explanation of the incident and any sanction imposed to the Chief Instructional Office, Dr. Marilyn Four. So please make sure that you're not committing plagiarism. It's a serious offense in both the academic environment as well as the professional world, and it will not be tolerated. Any work you submit needs to be your own. Just a note about technology issues. With an online course especially, technology issues will happen. It is your responsibility to ensure you have access to a reliable computer on which to complete work. However, when a problem arises, here are the steps you should take and people you should contact. Number 1, try a different browser. Number 2, determine if the issue is with your computer or with your settings. If you've tried both of those options and you're still experiencing issues, contact me. One other note, you'll be submitting assignments on D2L and on Turnitin.com. If you experience any issues with either one of those programs or websites, email your assignments to me by the deadline. I need to have something from you that's time-stamped that shows that you've completed the assignment and that it was done on time. So if you go to turn in your major essay on the day that it's due and you can't get Turnitin.com to work, email me your essay by 11:59 p.m. on the due date, and then I will be able to accept it. If I don't get it on Turnitin.com or D2L, and if I don't get an email from you, I will not be able to accept the assignment, and the assignment will be given a 0. So please make sure you get your work to me. Finally, there's a note at the bottom about the agreement. The terms in the course will not change without your notification. By staying enrolled in the course, you confirm understanding of and agreement to these course policies without exception. You must complete and score 100% on the attendance verification quiz on D2L before you can access assignments and material on D2L. So that's another note. You need to take and get 100% on the attendance verification quiz in order to stay in the class, and none of the content on D2L will be open to you until you get that 100%. So please make sure you take that quiz and you get that 100% as soon as possible. I'm going to go back to course information for just a minute. Under course information, you can access the course calendar. And like I mentioned earlier, this takes you through weeks 1 through 4. So it breaks it down week by week and shows you what assignments are due and when. So you can scroll through there and see weeks 1 through 4. If you go back to course information, you can also access the instructional package. The instructional package is a document that outlines the objectives for English 102. This is given to all students who are taking English 102, regardless of whether it's an in-person class or an online course. But if you scroll through this package, you can see the rationale for the course description, prerequisites, required materials, additional requirements and technical requirements. It also goes over student learning outcomes, so these are the learning objectives. There is a note here, instructors can cover this material in different ways, so you might read how it's broken down here, but instructors can organize their material differently depending on how they teach the course. If you scroll down a little bit more, there's information on grading and assessment. Again, there's a note that it's at the instructor's discretion how this is set up. And there's a grading system. There's information about attendance for in-person and online courses. And then finally, there's student resources. There's the Student Success and Tutoring Center that I mentioned earlier. There's also WaveNet Central, which is the go-to resource for any technology issues that you might have. So make sure that if you have any technology questions or if you need any assistance, you contact WaveNet Central. There's also important information about disability services. So please make sure you read through all of this information. And if you have any further questions about who to contact for anything, please let me know. Here we are looking at the week 1 coursework. Now week 1 is condensed into just 5 days, so you are going to have to move through this material pretty quickly. Each week I'll post the weekly agenda. So you can see here at the top, the college deadline, October 20th, is the last day to add or drop Fast Forward 2 classes, which is why you need to take that attendance verification quiz and pass it with 100% by October 20th. And keep in mind that until you get that 100%, you will not be able to access any other assignments on D2L. This outlines the reading. You do need to read Chapter 1, Chapter 2, and Chapter 9, as well as the short story Everyday Use. There is a TED Talk by Andrew Stanton. There's a link to that under the Week 1 outline. And there's also a handout, the Literary Elements handout, that you need to print and keep for reference. And then the guidelines and rubric for Paper 1. So we're going to get started right away with our first essay, so you can read the guidelines and rubric there. You need to complete discussion 1 and take quiz 1 by 11:59 p.m. on Sunday, October 23rd. If you go back to the weekly content, you can see that all of the information is there that you need. It's a link to discussion 1 and then a link to the first quiz. I'm going to take just a few minutes to go over your first essay for the course. This first essay is a narrative evaluation essay. What you're going to do is watch Andrew Stanton's TED Talk. Andrew Stanton is a professional storyteller who has worked on several films for Disney's Pixar. He was involved in Toy Story, as well as Finding Nemo and several other films. And during this TED Talk, he discusses his criteria for a great story. While he focuses on film, you are going to take his criteria and apply it to a work of literature. What you're going to do is write an essay that evaluates a work of fiction with literary merit. So this means a published novel or short story. You have a lot of flexibility with your choice for this paper. I've had students who do work with classics like The Great Gatsby or The Scarlet Letter, but I've also worked with students who work with more contemporary stories. So I've had a student work with one novel from the Harry Potter series, and I've had another student write a paper on the Hunger Games, and even another student who wrote a paper on the novel The Wizard of Oz. So you're going to take Stanton's criteria and apply it to a story that you think is great, and you're going to illustrate why that story is great. Through your evaluation of the story, the reader will come to understand how the story you select meets the criteria you select and why it's a great story. You must make the criteria clear and support your evaluation with evidence from the literature. Andrew Stanton talks about each one of his criteria during his TED Talk, but these are outlined below. A great story makes a promise, makes the audience work, creates anticipation and uncertainty, embraces change, makes the audience care, has a character with a spine, has a likable character, illustrates a theme, and expresses value. There is a note by number 9. For the story expresses value, that is the criterion that you're going to reflect on in the conclusion. So the other ones you can select and use in the body paragraphs, but number 9, make sure that you explain why your story that you pick has value for the reader. Once you've picked your story and decided which criterion you will use to apply to your story, you will go through the writing process. So you'll begin with your pre-writing by selecting your story, and then develop your rough draft. For every paper, we do have formal requirements. So all essays must adhere to MLA format, 12-point Times New Roman font, 1-inch margins all the way around, double-spaced text, a heading that includes your name, the class, the professor name and date, a header that contains your last name and the page number aligned to the right, a creative and appropriate title that is centered and typed in plain text, and a works cited page that documents the work of fiction in MLA format. For every paper, you will be given a suggested length and a minimum length. The minimum length is the length that the paper must be in order to receive credit. For this paper, the paper needs to be 3 full pages, and not meeting this length requirement will result in an automatic 0 on the paper. I also provide a suggested length. This length is based on papers in the past that have gotten A's. So papers that have gotten A's for this particular assignment in the past have generally been about 3.5 to 5 pages. On the next page, you will see the essay rubric. So the rubric breaks down into 2 different sections. You've got the content rubric and you also have the grammar rubric. You can get a total possible number of 70 points for content, and that's anywhere between 63 to 70 would be an A paper. So an A paper has an interesting title that fully grabs the reader's attention, an introduction that is engaging and presents clear background information for the reader, a thesis statement that clearly and effectively establishes the focus of the evaluation. Each body paragraph has a topic sentence that sets a clear path in developing the thesis, evidence from the literature that is relevant, commentary and evaluation of the criteria that shows depth of thought and presents unique, interesting insight, a conclusion that smoothly wraps up the paper and contains insightful reflection on the value of the story, direct quotes and paraphrase details that are integrated smoothly, and powerful vocabulary with no repetition of keywords or phrases. The essay maintains a clear, cohesive, and logical structure and guides the reader with smooth transitions. It has MLA citations that are correctly formatted and embedded, and then a lively, interesting writer's voice comes through to the audience. So this gives you a description of an A paper according to content. If you scroll down, you can see the description of a B paper, a C paper, a D paper, and then an F paper. And you need to read through that information independently. Underneath that is the grammar rubric, and the grammar rubric will always be the same for every paper. For grammar, I look for patterns of errors. You can get a total number of 30 points for grammar. If I see a pattern of errors that significantly interferes with the reader's understanding of the text, you're going to lose more points. If I see a pattern of errors that is there but not as serious, then you won't lose as many points. So I don't take a point off per error. I don't grade grammar that way. What I do is I look for those patterns. So if you have a paper that contains a few minor errors that do not interfere with the reader's understanding, that's 25 points. A clear pattern of errors that does not significantly interfere with the reader's understanding is 20. Contains a consistent pattern of errors that at times interferes with the reader's understanding is 15 points. A consistent pattern of errors that regularly interferes with the reader's understanding is 10. Severe errors that make it difficult for the reader to understand the writing is 5, and then an overwhelming number of grammatical errors is 0. I will give you comments on your paper when I see grammatical errors so that you can understand what kinds of errors that you have, and if you do have errors, you can work on fixing those for the next paper. Now, when I talk about patterns of errors, I mean errors that I see occurring over and over. So, for example, if I have a paper that a student has written and there are a lot of sentence fragments, there might be 15 sentence fragments. Sentence fragments are incomplete sentences and are going to be very confusing for a reader. When you have incomplete thoughts, it's very difficult to understand what the writing is saying. So that would take the grammar grade down to 10 or possibly even 5 points. However, I might have another paper that has comma splices. It might also have 15 errors, but instead of being sentence fragments, it's comma splices. Comma splices are mistakes. However, they are not nearly as confusing for the reader, and they don't interfere with the reader's understanding of the writing nearly as much as a fragment. So in that case, you might have a pattern of comma splices that puts you at 25 or 20 points instead. At the end, you'll get a grade for content out of 70 and a grade for grammar out of 30, and then you will get your combined final grade. And you will be able to see that final grade on turnitin.com when you log in, so you can see exactly what you got on content and what you got on grammar. The last 2 pages of this document are grammar codes and content codes. What I do is I use these to comment on your papers. I've been teaching writing for a long time, and I find myself making the same comments over and over and over again. So to get my feedback to you more quickly and to be more effective at grading, I started using codes. If you see numbers on the comments for your papers, that means that these are grammar errors. So for example, if you see a number 1 next to a highlighted word in your paper, that means that that word was misspelled. If you see a number 3 next to a highlighted sentence, that means it's a sentence fragment. So anytime you see a number on a graded essay, that means that there is a grammatical error that's present. So you would refer to this page to see what kind of error it is and how you can fix it. On the next page are the content codes. So this is the same idea, except it's focusing on content instead of grammar. So for example, if you see an A next to the title, it means to make the title more interesting and relevant. If you see a C next to the thesis statement, it means you need to develop or revise the thesis statement. So refer to this page for content codes. If you see letters, the comment correlates with content, and if you see numbers, those numbers correlate with grammatical errors on the paper. Because this course is accelerated, we're going to be moving through the major essays pretty quickly. This means that you will be submitting your first essay at the end of week 3, that Sunday of week 3. So you'll have about 2.5 weeks to turn the final draft of this paper in. So what I recommend is going ahead and reading through these directions, watching Andrew Stanton's TED Talk, participating in the first discussion that goes with Andrew Stanton's TED Talk, and then selecting your story and getting started on the paper. This concludes our D2L course tour. Please contact me with any questions that you have at lindsay.knowles@hgtc.edu. I look forward to working with you this semester.